Yo, welcome back to the channel. So today is a bit of a special day because I'm going to finally announce my new freestyle frame, the Arkon V3. I've now ordered the first batch of Arkon V3s, so they're currently being manufactured. I thought now was a good time to announce the frame and show you what I've been working on for so long. There's also a pre-order now live on the website, because every time I announce a new frame I always get asked if I will do a pre-order. So for those of you that like to pre-order and make sure that you get in on the first batch, that's available for you as well. Now, those of you that subscribe to my channel or follow what I'm doing will know that I've been working on this frame for a long time, all year, at least it's been on my channel since December of last year. So yeah, 10 months in the making, and I just really hope it's worth the wait. A little bit later we'll head over to the bench and I'll go over every aspect of the frame, all the features, all the little details, show you what I've been working on. You might wonder why it takes me so long to design and release a frame. It just comes down to the fact that I don't want to sell something to anybody without thoroughly testing it first. I could very easily design a frame, put up some 3D renderings, put it on pre-order, take everyone's money, and then use that money to order the first batch. But that is completely it's not the way I want to operate, and I'll never be doing anything like that. So I design the frames, I test the frames, I tweak them, I make lots of changes, and I make them, I send them out to my sponsored pilots, I send them out to random people as well for testing and get their feedback, make further changes, and only when I'm totally happy with the frame will I release it. At the end of the day, I'm a pilot first and foremost. I know I design frames, and yes, I'm running a small business, but the only thing I really care about is flying. So I'm never going to release a frame that I wouldn't want to fly myself and isn't good enough for me to fly. So that's why I just spend a lot of time working on them, just to make sure that every single part of it is as good as I can possibly make it. Yeah, hopefully a little later when I go over the features of the frame, you'll be able to see why it took so long really to get right. So when it comes to testing the frame, obviously the main thing is durability. A freestyle frame needs to be durable, so luckily I'm pretty crap at flying really. I crash so much. So when it comes to durability, all I have to do is just fly around like I normally do, and I crash so much that if it can take the punishment that I put it through, then I'm more than satisfied to sell it and sell it to other people. Because yeah, if I'm not breaking it really easily, then you shouldn't really be, because I crash a lot, I fly pretty hard, and yeah, so if it can withstand my punishment, then it's good enough in terms of durability for me to sell. So that just got tested over and over again with every iteration and every revision of the frame design. So it's had a lot of durability testing. I will be putting together a video in the future, a bit of a crash video, just showing you some of the heavier crashes that I've put it through, and the aftermath, what survived, what didn't, and what changes I then made to the design to improve it. So I want to do like a bit of an edit on the development of the frame, shall we say, and the testing and the development of the frame, just to show you the sort of work that I put into it. Other than the durability, obviously I need to test for frame resonance. Now it has become a lot more popular in the last year or so, since a few popular YouTubers have put out videos regarding it, but the truth of it is, black box has always been there, and checking frame resonance is something that I've done for the last 5 years, so it's not new to me to make sure that it doesn't have lots of noise being picked up by the flight controller. And I kind of have a few little tricks that I'm able to shift the frequency into a more manageable area, and other ways of reducing the magnitude of the noise that's picked up by the flight controller. So that's an area I definitely concentrated quite a lot on this frame, more so than any other, to be honest, because of the recent popularity in black boxing. So I just wanted to make sure that the resonance frequencies that are picked up by the gyro aren't too large and frequency isn't too low. One of the first prototypes that I was flying had the spike at around 160 Hertz, which wasn't great at all. It meant that you had to add filtering a lot of the time. It wasn't terrible because the magnitude wasn't very high, but it did mean that you couldn't push the filters too high. So I was able to make a few changes and push the frequency up to right on 200 Hertz is where the resonance frequency of the frame is, and the magnitude, even with really beat up props and knackered motors, is not very high. So it deals with frame resonance and damage to components really well, to the point where, yeah, now on Betaflight, which is what I've done most of my testing with, Betaflight, I'm able to turn the gyro low pass filters off completely, even though it has now been proven that that isn't the best thing to do, and you're much better off just running them really high at like over 1000 Hertz, 500 to 1000 Hertz, because the delay that causes is less than 1 millisecond. So and the magnitude of the noise of the lower frequency is reduced quite a bit, even though the low pass filters are set really high, which is a little bit of a strange thing that they figured out, but I've been able to prove it as well. So yeah, being able to shift the frequency up to 200 Hertz means that you can run and the magnitude is small enough that the dynamic notch filter is all you really need to deal with the noise, and then you just run the low pass filters up high just to bring it down, all that low level noise, just bring it down a little bit. Yeah, only one D-term filter as well, and yeah, I've been able to get the best tune ever out of any of my quads. These are flying really good now, both Hero Session and Hero 9. So I've got a heavier build and a lighter build. Been able to work on tunes to make them both fly really good. So I've been testing mainly on Betaflight, as I said, but that's because black box is good and works well and is useful. That's really what lets down the other firmwares. Emu Flight has got it, but it's not as good, if I'm honest. I can't seem to... It's more you can't compare it with Betaflight. So if you've already done some testing with Betaflight and you can't really switch to Emu Flight and compare the logs, because they're done completely different. The scaling's all completely different. And Raceflight, of course, no black box logging. That would be of any use to me. So yeah, but I have managed to test all 3 firmwares, got them flying on all 3 firmwares just fine. So there's no issues there, which I didn't think there would be, but I thought I'd be thorough this time and actually test all the firmwares. Sorry Pavel, I didn't test it on iNav, but it's just because the whole setting up GPS and stuff, I just can't be bothered with it at the moment. I'm just a bit too busy, but I do fully intend to build up a iNav version with GPS and play around with the whole proper return to home and landing and everything. It all does look pretty cool, and it's something I've never really played around with. So I will be doing up an Arkon V3 for iNav as well. So the Arkon was the original frame that I designed, and it is the frame that started HaloRC. So when I decided to bring it up to date so that it could carry modern day components, I knew that I wanted to do the best job possible, just because it's always, you know, it's my #1 frame. It's what I personally want as for a freestyle frame. Bringing it up to date with modern day components. All the components have got a bit bigger these days, analog VTXs as well as obviously the DJI Air unit. So I needed to make this frame bigger. I wanted to make it stronger, and if possible I wanted to make it lighter. And yeah, I've basically managed to do all three of those things. It's a lot bigger than the Arkon V2. It's about 5 grams lighter, coming in at about 112 grams. And it's got and it's far more durable. I think we've had enough of this intro crap. Let's head over to the bench now so that I can break down the frame and show you all the cool features of it. Laters. Okay, so we're over on the bench now, and here she is. This is the final version of the Archon V3. As you can see, the main feature of this frame is vertical carbon front end, which is kind of the signature style of the original Archon. Those plates are 1.5mm thick, but then got this extra added brace at the front there, which actually makes the most important bit 3mm thick. I've had some really gnarly crashes head on with posts, and the only thing that fails are the standoffs and the bolts, I guess. Haven't managed to break any of the carbon plates. There's absolutely no movement in there at all. You can see here on the top plate, got countersunk holes to keep the top plate nice and flat for your battery, and lipo strap slots there to hold your lipo strap in place, as with all of my frames. The rear end here, you can see, has this bit that sticks out. That's on most of my frames actually. That's just used for zip tying your SMA antenna out the back. It's also used for the Vista mount that actually hooks on over the top of the top plate, and the DJI Air unit antenna mount that also uses the top plate to hold it in place. So you can see it's a wide X format and a slammed deck design with built-in 30-degree angle plates there for mounting your HD camera, your GoPro, let's just say it. You can see that there's this TPU plug that goes inside the camera mount there, and it has various holes for various cameras. So depending on what camera you use and the length of the lens and how close to the edge of the carbon you need it to go to get the carbon out of view in FPV, you can adjust this and choose the holes that suit your camera length. So you can get it right up really close to the edge, or you can pull it back a bit and keep it more protected. This TPU plug works with all micro sized cameras, DJI or analog, and the original metal DJI camera also works in there. You can see, as I've got this up to the camera now, got these signature claw arm end designs, and the idea here is that this end will break off, or this end takes all the impact, and rather than delaminating the arm through the motor bolts, it will just break off there. Actually, so far I haven't broke any of these off, but I do remember with the Archon V2 I used to break them off quite a bit and just fly around without any on the end. Yeah, so they're actually quite hard to break off, and they really help protect the motors. The way that the position that I've got them sticking out, it's good for cartwheels when you roll in the whole quad cartwheels across the ground, but also when you're going along the ground, scraping the ground, you can scrape the ground with these claws and not damage your motors at all or anything. Right, so I mentioned earlier how it's got built-in 30 degrees angle. There are GoPro mounts that use the 30 degrees and ones that raise it up slightly at the back to get the angle down to 20 degrees. So there's a 30 and a 20 degree angle GoPro mount for the Session, the GoPro 7, 8, 9, and there will be one for the Hero 10 when it comes out in the next few days. Now, to fit the GoPro mount, you simply remove this top stand off, like so, and the standoff goes into the TPU GoPro mount. I've already fitted this one in, but basically you just push it in. I like to use the edge of a table to get it nice and flat on both sides, basically. That just goes on like so. You can see we're now securing the TPU in place with these front bolts. And then there's one additional bolt that actually goes through the back here. I bend that out of the way, you can see a bit better. Goes through this back section and bolts it into the top plate. See, get a nice angle of it there for you. See how that works. And so now the GoPro mount is attached here and to the top plate. Really secure. Haven't actually managed to break any of the Hero mounts. I did manage to break one Session mount. That's over 10 months. I've only managed to break one GoPro mount in 10 months, which is pretty good going, because frames like the Osiris, where you're bolting the GoPro mount into bolts that secure the top plate in place, you're not able to tighten up these. You're not able to tighten up these bolts here because there's TPU in the way, and whenever you take impact on it, they usually just rip where the bolts are going through them. So doing it this way, most of the strength is coming from using this wide piece of TPU and using the standoff, and this is just more to hold it in place. So yeah, they're working. This method is working really well. One feature I wanted to keep in the Arkon was how easy it is to work on. Because we're using the vertical front end, we've only actually got to remove 6 standoffs to get the top plate off. Now, by doing the GoPro mount the way that I have, when you remove these 6 bolts, it actually acts as a hinge, and you can just lift the top plate up, a bit like if you were working on a car and lifting up the bonnet. So you can just lift it up like so. You can see how the top plate is secured to the GoPro mount, and the GoPro mount just can move on that standoff. Just makes it really nice and easy to work on. You can just lift that up and you've got access to all that space inside, all the build area inside. So you can see that there is mounting for a 20 by 20 stack, and these slots here, they're actually for 30 by 30 stack. And the reason why I've done slots is it was a complaint of the Osiris that you couldn't fit the stack bolts after you've assembled the frame. So I've fixed that by adding these slots. Let me just find a bolt. So I fixed this by making them slots, and what that allows you to do is you can just drop your stack bolt in there and then slide it out and secure it in place with a nut, and you've got your 30 by 30 mounting accessible without having to take the frame apart. So that's a cool little feature that I've been able to add. You can see obviously I've added a spine to this design, much like the Osiris. Works really well for adding a lot of stiffness right across where your flight controller is, which really helps reduce the amount of vibrations that are picked up by your flight controller. So you could see where the arms go into the frame. It's really nice and chunky. That's the breaking point. So I've flared it out a bit there, and yeah, to just make it a lot more durable. The rear section of the frame is obviously quite large, you may have noticed, but it does match the front end, so it's all nicely balanced. The reason why it's a lot bigger than any of my old frames, the Arkon V2 or the Osiris, is simply because components have changed since I last designed a Freestyle frame. Analog VTXs are a lot bigger, ones like the Rush Tank and the TBS Unify HV Pro 32, whatever other names they're going to add to the end of that thing, and of course the air unit. So air unit fits comfortably, like lots of space for the air unit actually if you don't use the mount, but I created this really nice cradle mount that just hooks over the standoffs and secures that in place. I can't be bothered to fit that right now, so I'll just overlay a photo. Boom. So yeah, nice clean way of fitting an air unit to this frame, and it allows you to run the wires to your flight controller underneath the air unit because it raises it a couple of millimeters, keeps those cables nice and tidy. Obviously if you use an air unit, you're going to need a special antenna mount for that. So I saw something similar on a Johnny frame and came up with my own idea for it. So the way it works is you have this hole there that you can shove the antenna through, and then I've just created this little plug thing with a little slot in it that allows you to squidge it over that, and then you can just push that into there, and it like keeps the antenna super tight. I was so chuffed with being able to get that to work easily with TPU. So I've got a really nice, really cool little mount there for if you're running the air unit and you need to run the dual antennas like that. Then obviously I've got a Vista antenna mount as well, which is just like the Osiris. Hooks on the rear standoffs, and the top plate slots into the mount itself to stop it from falling down. SMA mount doesn't need the bit that goes over the top plate to stop it falling down, because you're going to be using a zip tie that goes through the top plate and holds this bit tight to the top plate. So then any impacts that you get on here is just going to like bend this end and not move this. You might think this is a large, this is too much space, but honestly if you're running a Vista with an SMA antenna, you really do need that space, because once you get the Vista in there and you've got this bit sticking out the back, the pigtail sticking out the back, you really need that room to route your antenna around. I think actually all my Arkon V3s are running SMA like this, and you just bend that around and shove it in the Vista like so. It's the cleanest way I've been able to mount a Vista. Gone over the front end, gone over the middle, gone over the rear, gone over the arms, gone over the top and the GoPro mount. I'm just gonna take this apart now and show you. I've saved the best bit to last basically. I have to take it apart to show you though, so I'm gonna take that apart now, and you can join me back in a minute. So as you can see here, the spine and the arms are running flush. That's all down to a new idea that I had that involved cutting away part of the carbon fiber to create this inset cut, as I call it. I think it's called 2D, 3D. So you're cutting in two-dimensional in the flat plate, but you're drilling down into it in the three-dimensionals to create these little inset cuts. So that's in both the arm and the spine, so you can see there, and that just slots inside. It's a really nice tight fit, and obviously you rinse and repeat all the way around with all 4 arms. They all slot together in there and create kind of a one-piece arm section. That's all the same thickness all the way through, and it just uses 1 bolt in between the 2 arms going straight through the spine and into the middle plate. And then I also added a secondary bolt right next to it, and that was just to make sure to remove any vibrations, because this was there's quite a big gap from there to the edge here, so all of that was all unsupported and kind of flapping around a bit. So an extra bolt through there just makes this extremely tight and secure, no vibrations. And yeah, this is the evolution of my original spine concept from the Osiris, taking it to the next level by coming up with this new idea of using inset cuts on the arms. So yeah, you just slot them all together like that, and then the bottom plate there creates all this, adds all the strength on the outside edges, and then obviously, yeah, boom 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 boom, she's back together. So yeah, that is the basic overview of the Osiris, showing you all the cool little features of it and what it can do. Yeah, the next time you see it will be in a build video. So yeah, I'm going to be building this one up soon and putting a little build video together, and going through the whole PID tuning experience with you like I did with the Osiris. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you all soon. Laters.